Elizabeth was pacing back and forth in the room, feeling uneasy. Something felt off. She was confused and didn't quite understand what to do. Yesterday she had visited the notary. Her father, whom she hadn't spoken to in many years, had died. It turned out he had passed away 6 months ago and had left her his restaurant as an inheritance. He had children from another marriage whom Liz had never even met, and they inherited everything else he owned. But the restaurant, he left that to her. Her first instinct was to refuse. Besides, she had completely different plans. In 2 weeks, the young woman was planning to fly to Germany, where her fiancé was waiting for her. It couldn't be said that William and Elizabeth had a passionate relationship. This marriage was simply beneficial to both. William was a businessman, Liz was an intelligent, beautiful wife he needed, and she wanted a wealthy, sophisticated husband. That was all. Liz was planning to open a chain of beauty salons in Germany. People already knew her there, recognized her as a top makeup artist. And now this restaurant was ruining her plans. Margaret insisted that Elizabeth accept the inheritance, which, incidentally, greatly surprised her. "Elizabeth, think carefully before refusing. Mum, I don't need anything from him. Wait, don't rush. Your father wasn't the only one. You understand, men and women fall in love even when they're already in relationships." "Mum, what are you saying? Are you defending him? You always said he was no good, that he was a traitor." Elizabeth looked at her mother in shock. "I'm not defending him, Elizabeth. He was strong. Funny, I never saw him around when I was growing up. He didn't even visit me on my birthdays." "I was the one who forbade him." Margaret sighed. Elizabeth's eyes widened. "What do you mean? You always said he had a new family and didn't need me anymore." Margaret stood up and walked to the window. "I owe you an apology for lying. I just loved George too much, suffocated him with my love and jealousy. George always supported us financially, and it was only thanks to his money that you got such an education." For Elizabeth, this was truly shocking. She had always believed her father was bad, that anyone could betray you in life, that no one could be trusted, and that it was better not to fall in love to avoid heartbreak. And now, in an instant, everything was turned upside down. She didn't reject the restaurant, but she didn't know what to do either. Should she let it run on its own while she left for Germany, or should she stay, take a look, and understand everything first? William should understand. This was business, money. But he was very displeased and asked Liz to wrap things up as soon as possible. "You must understand that my family won't accept too much delay. Of course, I'll try to be as quick as possible. So have you decided what to do? Sell it or something else?" "No, I'm not sure yet. I need to go there, check it out, calculate everything properly. Maybe it's profitable, and if it is, it would be more reasonable to keep it." After talking to her fiancé, Liz felt like she had done something wrong, like a schoolteacher was scolding her. She shook her head, opened her laptop, and searched for the restaurant's name. First, she looked at the pictures. She actually liked the decor a lot. Then she moved on to the reviews. Most of them were positive, but one caught her attention. "Never work at this restaurant. The administrator is a tyrant, conducts ridiculous checks, and doesn't want to pay." Then another similar review. Again, something about checks. Elizabeth closed the laptop. What kind of checks were these? A wild thought stuck in her head, and as much as Liz tried, she couldn't get rid of it. "Mum, what if—" Elizabeth sat down on the couch. "Why would you do that?" Margaret frowned. "I don't know. I just want to see everything from the inside." "So you're really going to wash dishes?" "Well, I'll be a dishwasher, and if I'm not mistaken, that's what dishwashers do." "I don't know. You're reminding me of your father right now. He also loved unusual solutions. Elizabeth didn't respond. She could see that the news of her father's death had left a deep mark on her mother's soul, and she hoped time would heal the wound. Elizabeth entered the restaurant where she was immediately approached. "We're not open yet." "I'm here for the job posting as a dishwasher." "Follow me, I'll take you to Henry." "Interesting. So this was the so-called tyrant no one wanted to work for?" The girl accompanying her laughed. "Nonsense. What, did you read the reviews?" Liz was puzzled. So the checks existed, but they weren't checks. Why was this girl talking about them so freely and cheerfully? Liz thought the staff would be intimidated, but the reality was different. "What position are you interested in?" Henry asked. Liz couldn't help herself. There was no way this man looked like a tyrant. He spoke calmly, his eyes were kind, and overall he was just too handsome. She was listening absent-mindedly until she noticed his curious expression and felt embarrassed. "Will there be some kind of test?" "Of course. We can conduct it right now to see if you're a good fit for us." Henry smiled, and to Liz's own surprise, she agreed. "What were you expecting?" Liz didn't know what she was expecting either. "Are you ready?" William asked. Liz shrugged. "Yes." She nodded. She loved washing dishes. In fact, Liz loved cleaning and bringing order to things. Her mother always laughed at her. "Liz, you'll never starve. If we ever run out of money, you can always work as a maid." Mary was the same way. As a child, Liz loved spending time with her in the kitchen. Mary would cook and tell stories about soup and porridge while Liz listened with her mouth open. Liz passed the test with flying colours. Henry smiled. "Everything looks great. When can you start?" "When do you need me?" "Honestly, yesterday." "Then I can start tomorrow." "Great." Henry walked her to the door. "See you tomorrow." Liz nodded and left. Her heart was pounding. What was this? Why did Henry affect her like this? She pulled out her phone to call William to calm herself down, but changed her mind. Calling him would calm her down, sure, but she didn't want to be calm. William always had the effect of a sedative or even a sleeping pill. Her mother looked at her closely. "What's going on with you? You look like a ruffled sparrow." Liz hugged her and twirled her around the room. "Mum, I got the job as a dishwasher. Can you believe it? I passed the test. And the manager there, Henry—" Margaret pulled back. "Wait a second. Henry? Dark-haired, right? You know him. He's the son of your father's friend. When you were little, his father died, and your dad took him under his wing. He lived with his mother, and they didn't have much money. George often visited them and helped out. I didn't think he'd keep it up for long." "So he didn't abandon the boy? He actually helped him become someone." "Lately, I've told you so many good things about your father. I regret that I didn't keep in touch with him." "Me too, Mum, me too." "So you're really going to wash dishes? It's your restaurant." "For now, yes. I can't let people down." "But that's not right." "It is right, Mom. It's completely right." Margaret shook her head. "I don't understand. You're acting like a silly, love-struck girl." Liz went to her room, closed the door, and leaned against it. No, it couldn't be. Love at first sight didn't exist. It was all just fairy tales. But her heart was singing, her thoughts were tangled, and she realized she had fallen completely in love with Henry. The problem was she had no idea what to do about it. She was supposed to get married soon. That thought instantly brought her mood crashing down. Liz buried her face in her pillow and cried. She had been working at the restaurant for a week now. There were always lots of customers and plenty of work. She saw Henry rarely, which she thought was probably for the best. At the same time, she was looking for a replacement dishwasher so the restaurant wouldn't be left without staff. William had called several times, asking when she was coming, but Liz realized she didn't want to leave. She wanted to stay, just to see Henry, even if only sometimes. Margaret watched her with concern. "Liz, tell me what's going on with you." "Mum, you won't believe it, but I think I'm in love." "In love? And what about William?" "I don't know, Mum. And does he know?" "Mum, look at me. Do I look like someone who knows what's going on? Everything is so tangled I don't even know how it will all end." "Oh dear. So what are you going to do?" "If only I knew." That day, Liz decided to tell Henry everything. Well, not that she had fallen in love with him, but that she was actually the owner of the restaurant. The evening was in full swing when Liz heard a commotion in the dining hall. This had never happened before. She peeked out carefully. The waitresses were standing nearby, whispering, "This is ridiculous. Every time she shows up, she makes a scene." "It's because Henry ignores her. She's been throwing herself at him for ages, but today I guess he had enough. He asked her to leave." The yelling grew louder. Liz looked more closely and nearly groaned. The one making a scene was her old acquaintance, her so-called friend, Victoria, and she was screaming so loudly the windows were shaking. "Who do you think you are? I own this restaurant. You don't make decisions here. You're just a servant." Victoria was drunk. Henry stood in front of her, pale but composed. "Please leave," he said calmly, "or I'll have to call the police." "Call them. I'll call the owner and have you thrown out." Liz was furious. She couldn't stay still. She marched into the hall. The waitresses looked at her like they'd seen a ghost. "Victoria," Liz said. Her so-called friend turned. "Liz, what are you wearing? You, what happened to you?" Liz saw Henry's expression shift from confusion to anger. She escorted Victoria outside, put her in a taxi, and returned to the restaurant. The staff parted as she made her way to Henry's office. He was sitting behind his desk, but when she entered, he stood up. "Am I fired?" she asked. Henry blinked. "What? Of course not." She took a deep breath. "I need to apologize. I read a bunch of nonsense in reviews and decided to test things out myself. And then I didn't know how to confess." He ran a hand over his face. I'm completely lost for words." They ended up talking for hours. After the restaurant closed, Henry walked her home. At the doorstep, he hesitated. "I can't get used to seeing you like this." "You will. We'll be friends." Henry tilted his head. "Friends?" He took her hand and kissed it. "You'll still be around the restaurant?" Liz laughed. "More than you think. While I'm still looking for a dishwasher, I'll be here every day." "You're still going to wash dishes?" "Of course, I agreed to it myself. You're extraordinary." Liz walked into her house, her cheeks burning, her heart pounding. Her phone buzzed with a message from William. "Either you come back immediately or I'm cancelling the wedding." She smiled and typed back, "Cancel it. I'm not going anywhere." 6 months later, there was a wedding after all, held in her own restaurant with her true love, Henry.